When did you first grow curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to Hounds of Asher.
And hello, everybody. This is your, although absent, host, Steve Asher. Hoping you guys are doing well. We are getting close to Halloween. Slowly, the leaves are beginning to turn, and it's starting to get a little bit cooler. Still having to run the ACs here in the South because, we're lucky like that. But, so there was some stuff I was going to talk to you guys about. I probably should mention, if you go to steveasher.studio or Google Steve Asher, you should be able to find my books, videos, video appearances. I will also mention that I've been having some pretty good luck with cons and conventions, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm pretty happy, man. I'm pretty blessed in regards to that. I've been working my butt off trying to make it happen. I should mention, October 7th, there is the Mayfield, Kentucky Paracon, which is going to happen at the library there that day. And that's October 7th. That's a Saturday. Hope to see you guys there. I'm also going to be having a signing, meet and greet, and a presentation at the Marshall County Library. And that is October 14th. So I hope you guys can come check it out. It's probably going to be my last con for this month. Honestly, just because got some different stuff going on. And got a business venture I got going. And it's going to take up some of my time. So, there is that. I may have told you about, and I have to really walk around this because this was never, honestly, this was never even looked at by, as far as I know, the local police. And it really ties into some weird stuff. Okay, is that vague? Is that cryptic enough for you? Okay, so back in the 1950s, mid-50s, there had been a girl that had worked for a guy who owned a fair amount of property around the Highland Baptist Church area in Princeton, Kentucky. Let's just say that. I'd rather not get demonetized and stuff like that if I can help it. But the girl was working, pay off some debts from people like her father and stuff like that. More or less put her to work for this guy, doing house cleaning and doing all this different kind of stuff, cooking. Well, she was a pretty girl. And like I said, she was probably, I would assume she was under 18. I don't know how young she was, but she was a simple soul, a trusting soul. Well, long story short, she was having to wash more things than dishes and cups. And lo and behold, the girl got pregnant. Well, this guy was kind of really no other way of saying it, kind of a slumlord. And when she come to the man about it and discussed it and said, look, I'm pregnant. You're the only person I've ever been with. Well, he wasn't crazy about it and tried to kind of poo-poo it away and talk her, sending her down this way, sending her down that way. I think even offering to pay for the medical procedure to end the pregnancy. And she refused. She was raised up in a Christian home and just didn't believe in that. Well, he didn't like that much. So she ended up not working for him much after that. But as the months went on and the pregnancy continued, he would check on her from time to time, still trying to make offers to do this and that. Well, of course, she wouldn't take his offer. About a month before the pregnancy, he had talked to her because she had kind of was saying, "Look, if you're not going to help me, I'm going to go public about it. I'm just a poor kid. I have no big rep to worry about. You know what I mean?" So he did make her this promise. He said, "Look, I promise, if that child is mine, I want to check it out and all that. If that child is mine, I will protect it for the rest of its life. I will take care of it for the rest of its life." This gave her a little comfort, and I believe it was early fall, about the same time of year, that she went into labor and the child was delivered. It was, she was younger. It was her first kid. It was a very tough birth. And as I understand, it was done at home and more or less had a midwife there to kind of walk her through it. Now, this next part, I should issue a trigger warning because this is going to be a little ugly. There's no other way of getting around it, but facts are facts. So those that don't want to hear something kind of gory, go get you a cup of coffee, check on your pets, water your plants. Heck, water your pets. I don't know. Do what you got to do. All right, here we go. This man come to the house. It was more or less like a shotgun shack. For those who don't know what a shotgun shack is, it's basically you can open the front door and see the back door. It's a series of a handful of rooms. It is more or less just in a straight line. Well, the gentleman come in. The wet nurse had went out to, get rid of like some of the containers that would have like the placenta and bloody rags and all the stuff that you always saw in those movies when they had to go boil water. Well, the girl, who was pretty much out of it, pretty much asleep, the midwife had let the baby be held in her arms. She was sleeping, holding the baby in her arms, with it kind of propped up around her. He looked at the little child, and he could not deny this kid. It's like he spit him out, and he looked around. There was no one there. The nurse was out front, and so he picked up the child in its little simple swaddling clothes, stepped down 3 steps of the back door. He walked probably 50 feet to the right, where he approached a gated area. He removed the little swaddling clothes, at this point holding the child by its feet. What happened next? It was, for me as a parent, it's inconceivable. It kills me every time I talk about it. Picked the child, or had the child by its feet, gave a little swing, and bashed its head in on a post. As there was a nearby hog pen, he nonchalantly tossed it over into the pig pen. Pigs will pretty much eat anything that they can crush and break down, and even a newborn skull isn't super soft. But that's about the only thing that a pig can't break down and consume is a skull, because it's a little bit bigger than I think their mouths, and so you have to had the bones broken. Well, by the time all this went down, the nurse had come around, hearing the hogs, ran down there. She's screaming. There's no way she can get to the baby. The girl, now awake, is walking down toward the pig pen, bleeding, screaming, "My baby, my baby." As far as I know, this guy was never charged with anything. I've cleared this story with family members of the girl who lost a child. Apparently, this was not the first time this happened. Not with her, but like with other, I don't know what you would call it, wards or whatever, people that worked for him that he kind of cared for. And I also can attest to this, as I have an older brother who was a younger kid that lived probably 50 to 100 feet from that property, which is right in between where the property is and the Highland Baptist Church in Princeton. My brother told me he could hear someone screaming, "Oh my God, the baby, the baby." My mother tried to shoo him into the house. Well, my brother was obviously concerned because something's wrong with the baby. She grabbed him by the collar and said, "Get in here. Don't get into this." It was more or less a we don't talk about it situation, as this guy owned most of the properties and most of the people did rental work and things like that for them to be able to live there. Almost a serfdom situation. Long story short, as I understand, the girl never recovered with it, which, my God, how would you? I won't say if she's still in this area or not. I know the man eventually died and hopefully is roasting in hell right now. That's an awful enough story. That in itself, you would think would be the end of it. But apparently not. As I've done research on this, as being a researcher, folklorist, amateur historian, there's always bits that come out after the fact. It's kind of like if you're cooking down a ham bone or something like that. All those little tiny bits of meat in the joints and stuff, they'll work their ways out. It's just going to take time. Same thing with this sort of thing. You can't hide things like this. Well, later on, I had heard stories of supposedly someone who witnessed it. I don't know if it was a cousin, I don't know if it was a brother, I don't know what it was. But somebody, I don't know, all right, I've heard two stories. So you believe what you want to believe. One is, it was a young boy that went down there. It was probably a year or two later, and had killed, well, it probably wasn't even that long, because they would probably have turned around and sold those pigs. I think some of the pigs actually were sold, which is awful to think of someone who's more or less consuming a baby. But he put a bolt in their heads and, cut their heads off. And supposedly, either fashioned a mask out of the pork leather or made some sort of homemade burlap-looking mask that resembled a pig. And they said you could hear him squealing and screaming and jabbering down in behind the property, which down below the property that I'm talking about, I'm not giving the exact address because there's no need. Down below that adjoined my grandmother's and grandfather's property, is a gully. And the gully works out into sort of a low-lying little pathway / swamp area that goes from that side of Cedar Hill Cemetery down toward the other entrance of Cedar Hill Cemetery that opens up close to Dawson Road in Princeton, Kentucky. So it's about I don't know, I'd say, I don't know if I'd say a mile, a good 1,500 feet. And people would swear that they would hear things down there, that they would see weird prints, they'd see almost places that looked like somebody was bedding down. And people would swear that that was the pig man or the pig boy or what do you want to call him. Okay. I actually spoke to Richard Serrett about this on his radio show. He thought I was joking. I wasn't. Okay. Fast forward to now. I have a friend who also has a love for weird stories, dark history, cryptids, swamp lights, all that kind of out there stuff. I'm not judging them. I'm there too. Well, he had mentioned that people had also seen, as best as I could describe it, a winged humanoid that had been around the area of Highland Baptist Church. Now, understand, there is a housing project in behind there, not probably a half a mile, and then between the church and there's a lot of rural areas, a lot of farmland that's, more or less just set up to be planted with corn or soybeans or tobacco or whatever. And this creature, as I understand, I believe stood 8 foot tall. It appeared to have some sort of real curious way about it. I'm going to look here real quick because I don't want to lie to you guys. I'm going to more or less read what was said to me. Of course, omitting names. This is how it goes. And I quote, "Okay, bro, this is told to me by a guy on the first night we met. Him and his friend were standing at the edge of the yard of the house that sits on the corner across from Highland Homes and Highland Church. Highland Homes is a nursing home up the street from Highland Baptist Church. Apparently, they said they'd heard something and looked at a creature around 8 foot tall with wings jumped from the middle of the roof of Highland Homes onto the gable closest to the church. This scared them to death, and they ran for the front door, barely making it inside. Once inside, his lady asked what was wrong, but all of a sudden they were dumbfounded and could not articulate what they had both seen. Next night, they got a call from a friend wanting to buy something from him. They agreed for him to stop by and come through the back door. His wife had heard something, stepped out on the back porch, and saw the creature hunched down, hiding like it was going to ambush her. She frantically ran back inside. When asked what was wrong, she couldn't articulate what she saw. So this thing apparently has a cloaking ability, some sort of element where they can make you not remember, almost like a thought, like a suggestion to not remember them, which is very strange. Apparently the friend never showed up, and the next day they asked why he was a no-show, and he admitted to even talking to them on the phone the night before. Now, they think that possibly this could have been something mimicking the friend on the phone, trying to lure them back outside of that area. If so, that's next level, guys. That's almost like a Mothman situation. That's really strange. Now, my friend went on and added, says he did not act like he was lying, and the odd details of the story made it seem believable. They said, I don't know, what do I think? What do I think? when I asked, I said, was this thing more of like a giant bird, gargoyle? I jokingly said Superman, Batman, Maytag repairman, And he says, his response was, the way I took it was, it's almost like a gargoyle crossed with like a Jeepers Creeper type thing, but longer and leaner, which kind of makes me think almost like of a pterodactyl type creature. I just don't know. Guys. It's extremely weird. That's new for me, but then I don't live right in that area anymore. I live on the other side of town. That's more like let me look. That's more of an east side of Princeton, where I live out on the south side of the town now. But we've all heard stories. We've all known people that come up with some strange encounter with different creatures. I mean, all you got to do is watch something like Slapped Ham or whatever, and you all always take that with a grain of salt. Take what I say with a grain of salt, because again, I'm retelling a story told to me. I've never seen that or encountered it. Not really wanting to. Nor have I encountered the pig man. I will say I've been in that area because that's still connected to my grandmother and grandfather's property that's now cared for by my cousins, my father's sons. I will say this, just out of respect, because they're good people, but they're not going to have a bunch of people stomping around on their property. Do not just show up. Do not go creeping around there at night. Do not trespass. Do not go messing around the church. We're pretty nice people down in this area, but we don't like people trying to tear up churches or digging around, messing around on properties. I will say years later, the pig pens were moved because this was during the time when you would have a pig pen, you would have an outhouse, you would have a well, all this stuff. This was back in those times. Even though it was the 50s, it was more like the 30s in Kentucky because Western Kentucky is a poor area. Much like, pardon me, my hillbilly come out, much like the Appalachian areas, we're kind of sort of a forgotten area. We're on our own out here, and that's okay. But things go a little slower here. But as I understand, that's what's going on. Now, if you have any comments on this, now this will be shared on Spreaker and iHeart, YouTube, several other little locations. If you have any idea on this, a similar story for your area, anything like that, contact me. Leave a comment. You can do that. You can always reach out to me on Facebook. I got Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff. So that's sort of that is my homework for you. And if you guys have encountered something like that, and especially if you have pictures, please send them this way. But as the sun sets behind the pines and the night gets still and dark, I want you guys to remember, check your closets, check under your bed, check out in that backfield behind your house. Who knows, you may run across the pig man or this bizarre cryptid winged menace. But remember, there's learning in fear. And until next time, everybody, please stay scared.